Always great catching up with my next guest, who's in another main event. It is Brandon Royval going to be taking on Tatsuro Taira. UFC Fight Night, October 12th. We got a little ways away, but always good talking to him. Brandon, how's it going?
Good, and yourself?
I am doing awesome. Before we talk about this fight, I actually got to see you very briefly in Las Vegas. Not an interview, but I said, hey, how are things looking for the Denver card? And you're like, I don't know if it's going to happen. Were you ever close to fighting on that card? Because that would have obviously been great for you being a Denver native.
Yeah, they offered me Josh Van like a week and a half before the fight, and I was like, really, like, to be honest,
surprising, honestly, because you just beat Brandon Moreno. Why would they be giving you someone so like Van? I don't even think is ranked, is he? Or if he is, he's lower.
He's not. He wasn't ranked at the time, and like after he lost that fight, he's not ranked either. And it's like, I have a lot of respect and a lot of like what's it called, like great things to say about Josh Van, but it's just one of those things that it's like, that's me doing the UFC a favor. I thought that card was falling apart, and it was like, that's me doing a big favor for them when they could have done a favor for me 3 months ago and put me on that card, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
I think I literally was the first person to announce it, so I was pretty upset. And then by the time that it was like they're like fighting Joshua Van, it was like I wasn't really like, at this point in time, it's like I'm ranked number one. I want to be in like perfect shape. I want everything to kind of go like according to plan to a certain degree, and it's like if I'm not fighting for a belt or if there's not like a championship line on there, it's like me taking a short notice is really kind of out of my cards right now, Yeah. When I was ranked number 3, number 4, anything behind what I'm ranked now, it's like, okay, I'll jump in a short notice anytime. But now it's like high risk, little reward. And it's like, if I'm not getting paid more, if there's not a guaranteed title shot or anything like that, then it's just me kind of, just taking a lot of risks. And that I felt like that was one of those times where it's like, I could have fought Josh Van, but it's like, I'm going to go fight him on a 2-week notice. He just got off of camp, and I'm like, this is how people like me get beat. Like, like, what is it called? Like, someone that's just like, I don't know where the odds are for them. That's how I lose fights, is just like taking a fight out of shape and, against some young, hungry kid that's in shape, and it was one of those, I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to risk it. And as much as I wanted to fight in Denver, it was just like, it wasn't really, the juice wasn't really worth the squeeze.
No, good for you for recognizing that. This does happen. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, Brendan Allen had to fight, I think, Chris Curtis on short notice, and Allen had built up a win streak in the weight class, and Curtis at the time, I think, had just been signed to the UFC, and Brendan lost, and it killed all his momentum. So you got to kind of look at things like that as far as your career. So good on you for that. Yeah, I was just curious, because obviously I know you really wanted to get on that card. The other quick thing I wanted to mention before we get into this, I know it's a few weeks old now, but your reaction to Muhammad Mokaev getting released from the UFC.
I mean, I knew it was going to happen. I kind of heard rumors of like, if he didn't have an exciting fight, he was going to get cut. But I mean, man, that sucks, honestly. Like, me and him talk shit back and forth. I love talking shit, man. I have enough friends. I like enemies,
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those, it's just like, I feel bad for him. That sucks. I hope that he can change whatever he was doing. I don't know exactly what like led up to the cut besides him being a boring ass fighter, but like, I hope he could change like what was going on there and kind of get some momentum behind him, because it'll cool to see him back. It'd be cool to see him back in the UFC flyweight division. He brought some fun stuff as far as like talking,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to be beefy, like he beefed with everybody. So that was pretty cool in that sense. It's just, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope that he gets a couple wins and comes right back to the UFC.
I do have to ask, though, Steve Erceg in an interview mentioning that he had heard or seen firsthand Muhammad Mokaev not being very good to the UFC staff. We hear PFL saying they're not interested because of similar things like that. I'm imagining you hadn't heard anything like that before about him, his dealings with the UFC as being part of the reason he might have not been re-signed.
I have no clue. I've never actually been on a card with him. I've never even seen him like face to face or anything like that. But I did know that.
Because it was weird. Erceg just brought it up out of nowhere. Like, I asked him about the release, and then he's like, oh, yeah, I saw it firsthand. And I was like, okay, like, I don't see a reason why he would make that up. But
yeah, no, I was sure he was there, because I know they fought on the same card, and I'm sure he's seen some shit. But what was I going to say? But I do know that Manel Cape, like, I did know way before everybody else that Manel Cape thing happened. Like, I knew that they were keeping it secret and that they buried the hatchet, and, like, they're trying to act like it never happened, and like Manel Cape was denying it, but I was like, oh, that shit definitely happened. Everybody like in the UFC PI was telling me all about it. So
yeah, because it was Cop who attacked Mokaev first, and then Mokaev, when they ended up fighting, did the sucker punch with the photo after, right? Is my understanding of the timeline of events.
Yeah, something like that.
That's crazy, man. Jeez, it's like save it for the fight. You actually get paid for that, right? It's good.
I know, or just do it in the fight, bro. I always wondered that too, because they're running at each other like maybe like 3 or 4 times where they hit that run at each other, and then like people jumped in between. But it's like, what was your plan when you got there? Because like, whatever, you know. But it's just like, what were you guys gonna do when you guys got to each other? Because when no one was around, like it didn't happen, you know. So
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And just last thing on Mokaev, are you disappointed that you'll probably not get to fight him? I mean, he could eventually come back to the UFC, I suppose. I know, the UFC has brought back fighters that, they've released or haven't re-signed, but is that someone you're like, damn, I wish I could have fought him?
yeah, for sure. But I still have high hopes that he's gonna be re-signed and that I'll end up fighting him and we'll cross paths down the line. I still think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, he's young, right? So that certainly works in his favor here. Were you expecting to fight Taira next? You were kind of in a weird spot, right? Because you had the big one over Moreno, and then obviously you just fought Pantoja last year. We have seen them though, like we saw this year with Yuri and Alex. They were willing to do a rematch pretty soon after they had fought. Was Taira an opponent you were expecting to fight next?
No, and I was honestly like I feel like I did a lot to avoid him. I called out everybody that wasn't him, and I felt like I played my cards specifically to try to avoid that fight a little bit, and just never happened. I don't know. I still don't know if Albazi's hurt or like what's going on with him exactly, but I feel like I've called him out like 10 times, like at least. I've asked the matchmakers whenever he heals to get that fight. And then I've changed like my date and pushed back of like when I wanted to fight numerous times. So I don't really know what happened with him, but as far as Tatsuro is probably one of the only fights in the division that I just didn't really want to engage in.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because fans are weird, they'll be like, "Oh, he's afraid to fight him." No, you guys used to train together a bit, right? Was my understanding?
Yeah. And just like like he'll come to Colorado, and as far as like the relationships I have in Colorado, I feel like I get along with everybody. So like when he came to Colorado, I invited him to a couple open mats. Like I asked him to come to the gym that I train at, jiu-jitsu at. So like I've like tried to bring him in to come train with him, I've never really trained with him. Like as far as like my training partners go, I train with Luis Goulet and then a bunch of 35ers and 45ers. Like I don't train with, besides Luis, who's 10-0, and he's amazing. He's one of my main training partners. But other than that, I train with guys that are higher weight class because there's not that many skilled guys, or at least at my level, to really push me. So when Tatsuro came, I was like, oh, cool. Like I could get a look or whatever it is, and I can kind of see what it's like to go with another flyweight because it doesn't really happen that often.
Very, very well said. So stylistically, how are you looking at this fight? And do you guys follow each other on Instagram? Is that how close the friendship is?
Yeah. And like keep in mind, like the friendship's very much of like I like him. He seems like a super nice guy, but there's a huge language barrier going on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
yeah, that too, obviously.
Yeah. We trained together like 10 times, only jiu-jitsu and grappling and stuff. But there's a huge language barrier and stuff. So it's like as much as you and someone who can't communicate to each other can't be friends is like how much I like that kid. Like I like him and I hope he wins the belt one day. I hope all the good stuff happens to him. And when the fight got proposed to me, I wasn't really stoked on it, but it's just like one of those like, what am I gonna do? Say no? And then this kid who if he beats me, he gets a title shot, I assume, right? Like so it's like what am I gonna go take away his dreams too? And it's just like it's one of those situations where I'm like, it's a good position for him. I mean, I don't have as much to gain from it, but I still have a lot to gain, It's like at least just shutting down the whole top five. So it was kind of like one of those where I'm like, all right, well, it makes sense. And then I just didn't expect him to rise up that quick, but good on him, what's funny is I just kind of thought I was like, between like the Mokaev and the Manal fight is just like where they beat so much and then they didn't really like do too much in the fight. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is going to be like the exact opposite of like, I think Tatsuro has a lot of finishing ability. He does a lot of cool stuff. He's a really good striker and he has a lot of submission wins. But it's like I don't think there's going to be any hostile, like nothing but shaking hands and like hugs and stuff like that. But when we get locked in the cage, I'm sure he's going to try to kill me. I'm going to try to kill him. So it's just kind of funny as far as stylistically. I'm like, it's just going to be like he's a killer, I'm a killer. And I feel like that's what you're going to see when we get in there.
Now, something we talked about before we hopped on this interview, and I believe this is the first time you've mentioned this publicly, you are no longer at Factory X. And first question is, if you can kind of give us a little bit of, reason why you're switching things up. And second, where are you training?
Yeah, I train all around Colorado. I have like a good core group of guys that I get to train with, and then I get to venture out because there's been like multiple gym splits in Colorado right now. There's a lot of people kind of floating around it.
Even at Elevation, I saw there's a number, which is no longer Elevation. It's Forge Fight Club, and then it broke off into two separate things, is my understanding too, right?
Yeah. And like I said, I think there's a lot of guys just kind of floating around right now, trying to find out what to do and what the next move is. And it kind of just led me to like I'm bouncing around a lot of places, but as far as like mixed martial arts, I train with like a core group of guys, like a handful of guys. We don't have a team name, none of that stuff. We're just kind of working and making each other better, you know.
Cool. Are you not allowed to train with anyone from Factory X? Like if they wanted to come train with you, is that not allowed?
I mean, I don't know if I don't think they're allowed to train with me, but they're all grown ass men, and they all, you know, these are my brothers. At the end of the day, it's like I didn't end any of my relationships in a bad way. I was very honest and upfront, and as far as like it goes with the team, there is like those guys are all my brothers. You know, those are guys like everybody that's there still are like I'm really cool with. I've never had any.
You guys were like a rat pack over there. Like you guys were all really close. You, Zalal, Martinez, Gutierrez. Yeah. Like you guys were like a really like tight knit group. I know.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like the last week that I had was I would probably have left a little bit earlier, but I was Chris's partner for Bashrat. Like I was giving the Bashrat look, so I wanted to make sure that he was ready for his fight and his camp. Even though Bashrat pulled out like last minute. That was the game plan. Is like I was the Bashrat. I was trying to give him the striking look of Bashrat and all that stuff. So I got to go and like study him and do all this cool stuff, and then kind of add like what he does in when me and him are sparring. So like I said, those are brothers, and like at the end of the day, is like if they need me for any of their fight camp, I will be there for anything they need. You know.
Do you have a coach, like, or are you just kind of coaching yourself right now?
Yeah. So I've pretty much had the same main coach for like the last 3 years. Clay Mata. He's writing my game plans for the last 4 years. Like
okay.
The Kai Car France fight, writes my game plans out, kind of details on how I'm gonna go about training and all that other stuff, and then like it's just like a boxing approach. I don't know if you know anything about the boxing like rules, but the way that they train is the trainer goes with them everywhere, and like that's how my coach is right now. Is Clay Clay details my whole entire week out. It's very Tatsuro oriented right now, and he oversees my whole entire camp. And it's like, that's the cool thing about having a small group is like, when you're in a big old training camp in a big old training room, it's like, you're one of 40 UFC fighters or one of 40 fighters in general. But half those dudes are in the UFC. So it's like, then you're just like another piece in there, you know, where it's like, as of right now, I'm his main student and he's my only coach right now. Or like, not my only coach, because I have a bunch, like I have a jiu-jitsu coach, a wrestling coach, all that stuff. But
nice. He's
orchestrating the strings, and he's been doing that for years, putting together my camp for years. So it's just nice to kind of finally pay him what he deserves.
Love it. Well, glad it's all worked out. And the nice thing is like everything's about you, right? Like it's like you're, you know, the team is centered around you. You have everything like for your needs. Because at the end of the day, I know there's obviously, we talked about like your friendship with those guys, but at the end of the day, it is an individual sport. So you have to kind of do what's best for you. And I think that's great that you've kind of figured all that out.
Yeah, that's the part about being close with all those guys too, is just like, I'm willing to get my ass kicked and try the Bashrat look. You know what I'm saying? Or like, you know, I've been like for Yusuf's guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy that he fought last that same week is like, whenever someone like couldn't fit in,
Aaron's the guy that Yusuf just fought, right?
Yeah, I'm not the best look because that dude's big and like a right-handed and a little bit more of like a heavy hitter. But it's like I've studied him, so it's like when someone is out or like I go rounds with Yusuf, I could go be that guy or try to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? And that's like part of the brotherhood that you're in, and that's the cool part about like having those group of guys and a tight knit people like that. And even now, is like the guys that I'm working with is me and Luis have fights, so it's like I'm not a good look for who he's fighting. But that being said, is that we can bring people in, and I can pay people to come be in there for him and stuff, and vice versa. You know?
Have you seen Taira at all during this camp? I don't know if he's in Colorado right now training.
He's not in Colorado. That's like another group of my friends are all at Forge too. Yeah. So he's not in Colorado. He'll be in Colorado September 14th.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're getting all the intel, which is good. So you know, kind of, I'm sure we're.
Well, and I don't want to cross paths because I'm like I said, at the end of the day, I'm really cool with a lot of the guys at high altitude or Forge or Forge.
Formerly Elevation, by the way, in case people don't know, the gym's kind of split apart a little bit, right? So.
Yeah. So I have a lot of friends over there and a lot of people I'm really cool with. So it's like I don't want to step on his toes, and I wouldn't want anything else. So it's like I was very formal on reaching out and like, hey, when's he coming in? Like, you guys are doing camp with him, then I won't try to steal your guys for my camp, and like vice versa, you know. So it's been a very like they're such a cool group of people, man, and it sucks to fight like, you know, just like people that you don't necessarily want to fight or you want to see them do well, you know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. How does your corner look? I know your corner's pretty much been the same, but obviously you'll be missing a piece or two since not being at Factory X. How will that change for this fight?
Yeah, it's still the same. I still have Alex in my corner. I still have Clay in my corner, and then this time I'm bringing Luis in, and I might bring my jiu-jitsu coach. I haven't decided or even know if he has enough time on his hands to even do it. But he just won ADCC yesterday, so you have a really good coach, and it'd be cool to kind of bring him too and just get his first cornering experience in a small, intimate place. So when we fight for a belt, it's not something crazy, you know.
Early prediction for the fight. Obviously feel like you're going to win. Otherwise, why sign the contract? But how do you see it going down with you and Taira?
I mean, I feel like it could go down many ways. I kind of wonder what his approach is going to be. I feel like he's probably going to try to take a stand-up approach to it, which is, you know, I love. And that's where me and him are untested versus each other. So it'd be really cool to kind of strike with him and just see what he's like. And, you know, I'm doing my studying and just seeing what he's really good at. And I feel like as far as the game plan goes, is I have a pretty good idea on how I could shut down what he does really well, you know. And you never really know until you fight somebody, but I feel like I have good ideas that will lead to a victory.
Your contract, are you still on the same contract right now, or did you get a new one? I always like to kind of get the update on.
No, not yet. I have probably like one more fight. This will be like the last fight of my.
Okay, well, big fight then. I mean, it's a main event anyway, so any main event is always going to be a big fight. But you know, you go out there, you win, you get a big win over Taira. Is it sort of your expectation you could be back in the title picture with a win? I would admit. I mean, beating Moreno and Taira, I would think it has to be, right?
Yeah, because I mean, who else am I going to fight? Maybe Albazi. I'm always down for that fight. I feel like I created enough controversy to have that fight.
I hope that fight happens. I just think the bad blood between, like, not even on your end, but just like it's like he'll do an Instagram story, you'll do an Instagram story. It's fun to watch. I think it's one of the few rivalries in your division, right?
Yeah, and I just love roasting people too. So anytime I could talk shit is just a good time for me, you know. But that being said, I want to fight Kyle Asakura too. I don't know if he's coming down to the flyweight division.
That's the rumor. The rumor. I mean, what I've been hearing, and I heard this in the summer, is that they're going to do Pantoja and Asakura next. Is my understanding. So
yeah.
Have you heard the same thing? Do we have the same sources? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like that's what it narrows down to, because like the offers that it just makes sense that they're probably going to go that route. But let's say if Asakura beats Pantoja, I would love to fight him in Japan.
And it's a fresh matchup.
Yeah, it's a fresh matchup. I love the excitement of that fight. I feel like Asakura brings so much excitement to the division. And I've watched Pride my whole entire life, and I've always wanted to fight in Japan, and I feel like that'd be a dream come true too.
Love it. That's good. You're embracing it. Because I think the same thing. So the reason I mentioned the Asakura thing is Pantoja's on the red carpet. This was in July when I saw you, actually. And he said something about, I've got an opponent, but it's like really special. And everyone immediately thought Demetrius Johnson. I'm like, he's not coming to the UFC. Like, I doubt it. And then we know Asakura has left Risen to come to the UFC. So I'm pretty sure it's him. If it's not, whatever, I'll own up. But putting two together, and I think it's good for your division because a lot of people have felt like the flyweight division has kind of been shafted over the last couple of years, whether it's fight bookings or all this stuff. But you bring Asakura in the mix, it's another bit of intrigue, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like he's a dangerous opponent. He has like a huge following out in Japan, and I feel like he just brings a lot of excitement to the division. And as far as the top five, I fought everybody. I beat everybody in the top five that's not Pantoja or Albazi yet. So it's just, at this point, it's just like I'm ready to fight someone new too.
Steve Erceg fighting this weekend. The only reason I'm asking about this fight is because Erceg could be a potential opponent down the line. That's one of the few guys you haven't fought. Do you think Erceg gets it done, having fought Kai, or how do you think that one goes?
Yeah, I could see it going either way. I feel like Erceg's really good in the pocket, and I feel like to fight Kai is probably best off to fight a little long, because he has that little dangerous factor of he has a killer right hand. So, and I don't think Erceg's going to be able to get him to the ground. I feel like Kai's takedown defense is legit. So, I feel like it could go either way. I'd give Steve Erceg the advantage probably everywhere. I feel like he's more creative. I feel like he's really good in the pocket and has fast hands, and he seems really smart as far as a fighter goes. So, and if it hits the ground, I'm pretty sure Steve Erceg wins that for sure. That being said, Kai's good at what he does, man. Kai's really good at what he does.
Do you think he looks like Michael from The Office?
Yeah, for sure.
He embraces it. That's what's so cool about Steve Erceg. He's such a good guy.
He seems like such a cool dude.
Yeah, he's just like he's all about it. It's totally cool. One other thing I just wanted to quickly clarify. So we were talking about obviously training. You were sort of telling me off air that the plan is not to go over to Forge Fight Club and train there after this fight, because that was one of the things. Obviously, your opponent will probably be training there, but your plan is not join them. You're sort of set with this nomad camp, right?
Yeah. As of now, it's something I gotta do. My long-term goal is open up my own, I don't want to necessarily say it's a gym, but but open up my own gym in a sense. Is I want to open up a boys and girls club, and I'm in the process of trying to buy a building, but just
Cool.
boys and girls club where I can kind of have like a safe zone for kids, just a place for them to be constantly, offer food, healthy food, because the food that they're
Oh, don't even get me started on that, man. Yeah, I got 2 kids, or 1 kid in the public school system and 1 coming here soon. And it's like, they do like those days where they get to eat food, and it's all garbage.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I like. It's like, I don't know if you ever heard this like term Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, and I just feel like a lot of the kids in Denver's basic needs aren't getting met. Of just like being in a safe place, of being in a place where they're offering good food, being a place where, they feel safe and like that they can get stuff done. A lot of these kids are over here babysitting their cousins, their sisters, their brothers and stuff. And it's like, I want a place where I could just bring kids in. They don't even need to worry about babysitting. In the Mexican neighborhoods that I work in, or that I predominantly kind of like patrol or like just kind of stay in, there's no opportunities when it comes to like sports there. When when we're talking about like the Mexican build is just like these kids are 5'9", 5'10", and when I go talking to schools or I'm in the school system and I'm like giving speeches, I'm asking them, I'm like, well, what do you guys want? Like, what's your guys' dream? That's always what I start my my talks with, and it's always like, oh, I want to be a professional basketball player, I want to be a professional football player, like yada yada yada. And it's like, if we're being realistic, the chances of that of going to like getting a scholarship for that is pretty low when you're at a height differential. So it's like my idea is to bring wrestling for free and just as much martial arts for free, because martial arts is a super expensive sport, and it's like predominantly like boxing predominantly like does really well in like bad neighborhoods because boxing's cheap, man. Boxing's $20 a month, $30 a month, or whatever it is, and poorer kids can afford that, So there's always a term that's like the poorer the neighborhood, the better the boxer, and you see that constantly. You see some of these guys that are making millions in the boxing realm who, Gervonta Davis is a great example, but it's like I want to provide that with the martial arts and just a high-level martial arts, high-level coaching, and in a poor neighborhood. So it's like martial arts is going to be so hard to access. Wrestling will be super easy to access, and I want a bunch of wrestlers just so college scholarships can go out, and then I want everything in between. I want computer labs, I want everything that's just a kid's basic needs are going to be a game room, all that stuff, and just so it's like I can provide for like the youth in Denver, because I feel like there's a big struggle. There's a lot of shootings going on, and a lot of them are 12-year-olds on fucking 12-year-olds and 17-year-olds on 17-year-olds and 8, what I'm saying, like very young age. And it's just like these kids need something to do, they need a relief, and they need a place to be, and I feel like I can provide that and relate.
Dude, I love this. And of course, people don't know, I'm sure they do, that was your job before getting in MMA, was working with troubled youth. So I love that you're giving back, Brandon. You're always a good guy in that sense. We need more of that in this world, especially nowadays. Everyone's going crazy. My last question, got to mention this. I did mention Forge Fight Club. Someone who I know always compliments you in my interviews with him is Cory Sandhagen, obviously losing to Umar Nurmagomedov. I know it's not your weight class, but just your thoughts on that fight. Umar leveling up and probably securing himself the winner of O'Malley and Merab after that win.
Yeah. I mean, that was a fucking great fight, man. It was such a high level fight. And then you can watch a Cory fight. It's just like you could always just like, instead of watching, I'm sitting there with my notepad, just trying to take away some things, And I felt like his takedown defense and grip fighting was so amazing, and just a lot of stuff that he does is just really good, And it's cool because you saw like both of them level up. I still think that, like I would love to see more of a strike. Like if Cory wasn't so worried about like the takedown defense or whatever takedowns. Just a good striking match between the two. But the fact of the matter is Umar's so good at both of them. But like I felt like the leveling up in Cory's takedown defense was amazing. It was something cool to see where you're like, damn, he's breaking those grips, doing all that. So there's so much cool stuff, man. There's so much to learn, and it's one of those fights that you can always go back to. Pretty much like every Cory fight, you can just always go back to and try to learn something from it,
Last question. Hockey season's coming up here pretty soon. You gonna go to any Avs games this year? Any plans? I know you're like a very casual hockey fan these days, but you know me, the Canadian. Gotta put my sport in this interview.
Yeah. I always try to like pop up to a couple of games for sure. I love hockey. It's the only sport that I can actually just sit back and watch.
Is it Scott Parker? Your friend? Who are you friends with that used to play for the Avs? Scott Parker.
Yeah, Scott Parker and his like family. Yeah, so that's cool. It's just like an old fashioned just brawler.
That's awesome. I might have to get his contact. I do a hockey show now, so I do it once a week. So I'm trying to slide my way into that industry as well. You got to be versatile, Brandon, as you know.
Just like a different interview room of like hockey players in the back.
I would love to interview some hockey players if I could dive into that a little bit, because it's a lot of fun, and always great talking to you, man. Sorry we went over time. I was like, hey, 15 minutes, and here we are at like 20 something. But it's always easy to get a lot out of you, Brandon. Really appreciate it. If there's anyone you'd like to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I want to thank AP Glass at all times, man, and just follow me on Instagram. It's really just under my name. Thank you.